everybody, and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure product review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at yet another B&M exclusive action figure collector set, this time round from Doctor Who Series 12, being the Friends and Foe of the 13th Doctor collector set, featuring Yasmin Khan, Ryan Sinclair, and of course a Judoon trooper from the Series 12 story Fugitive of the Judoon. Now this does of course complete the 13th Doctor's set of companions after the Graham O'Brien figure was previously released earlier this year alongside a Judoon captain. The recommended retail for this set is £19.99, and as per usual it is exclusive to B&M along with all the other collector sets that have been released this year, all of which that I have now reviewed. So taking a look at the packaging, as per usual this is exactly the same style with the Doctor Who logo in the top hand corner, along with a graphic of the TARDIS along the side, and of course a preview window to take a look at the figures on the inside of the box. Along the bottom we have the rather awkwardly titled name for this set, no doubt because Character Options were unaware of the title of the actual episode when this set was in production, and just above this we have the limited edition B&M sticker. Flipping around to the opposite side we have your usual jargon as per usual, including the title of the set printed once again, along with images of all three figures featured within this set. I must admit, it does feel rather unusual taking a look at a new series themed B&M exclusive collector set, because for the past few years the line has primarily focused on the classic series action figures, as that does seem to be the thing that sells. We did used to get new series exclusive sets, the likes of the 11th Doctor collector's set, and naturally of course this one is lovely to be able to add to the collection, completing the 13th Doctor's fam of companions, and of course a Judoon to go alongside the Judoon captain. So firstly, let's take a look at Ryan Sinclair, as portrayed by Tosin Cole. Now both this figure and the Yaz figure follow a rather similar format to that of the companions of the 4th Doctor collector set, where we have a brand new head sculpt that has been applied to a pre-existing Character Options body, and then that body has been painted up to look roughly like a costume that the character wore throughout an episode of Doctor Who. And to be honest, in the case of Ryan Sinclair, it really doesn't bother me. I think it works just as well as in normal sculpt that was completely brand new would, and I don't really care that it isn't 100% accurate to what we see on TV, because at the end of the day the vast majority of Ryan's costumes don't really stand out anyway, because why would they? They're just a generic costume that an everyday male would wear as a part of contemporary Earth society, and that is exactly what this figure possesses. It is just a generic male body painted in a manner that just looks normal and not particularly that remarkable, and for that reason it works fine. So taking a closer look at the costume, of course originally this was a guy from Primeval. A paint application on the jacket has now been changed. I do believe originally this was a light green, now it is of course a black base colour, and then over the top of this they've attempted to give it a dark green wash, simply to create some texture like it's a material that has been worn over time by an everyday human being. Of course taking a look at the back, once again we have that wash that has continued around, along with a few creases and wrinkles in there, along with a few stitching lines as well. Again, nothing particularly too remarkable. We also have the inclusion of some paint application along the front of the jacket, as well as on the pockets as well, to give the representation of buttons. Coming up to the top of the jacket we have the inclusion of the collar of the coat itself, which has been sculpted to be poking upwards, and then in between this we also have the suggestion of a light blue t-shirt underneath, which has been rather simply painted. Something that I recommend keeping an eye on, as it is a problem with my figure, is on the side here we do have an ever so slight little glitch of plastic sticking out the side of the collar, no doubt from where it's got trapped in the mould or something like that, so that's probably something that is worth taking a look at if you decide to pick this figure up from the shops. The trousers have been painted a base colour of light grey, and then over the top of this we have an ever so slightly darker grey wash to bring out some of those details, and at the very bottom we have some rather simply painted shoes that are a glossy black. And then finally, for detail, moving up to the very top of the figure to take a look at the likeness to Tosin Cole. And Character Options, to be completely honest, have done a phenomenal job. I'm genuinely really impressed. As I mentioned with the 4th Doctor Companion set, I like to think that because they are merely focusing on just a brand new head sculpt and not the rest of the body and the action figure, that's just changing the colours here and there, I like to think that a lot of attention to detail has gone into making the likeness as best as possible, and that is definitely the case with this action figure. I think that the detailing on the face overall is considerably sharp. We have the inclusion of the eye whites in there, as well as the iris in the middle, again very sharply painted, and of course a suggestion of the eyebrows just above this, as well as the paint application on the lips. Rotating around to the side of the face, of course we get the sculpting of the ears, as well as a brilliant attention to detail on the hair. As we can see at the very top, a texture has almost been applied to suggest the bigger bulk of hair that is on the top of Tosin's head. And then as we progress around to the sides of the head, we do have a slightly lighter colour that has been applied to suggest the shorter style of hair. So overall, I'm really impressed with this sculpt, as well as the paint application applied over the top of it, and it's possibly one of the best likenesses that Character Options have done in quite a long time. The second figure of the set, and the third of the 13th Doctor's companions to make it into action figure form, is Yaz, as portrayed by Mandip Gill, another welcome addition to the collection. Now, for those of you that have been collecting the other B&M exclusive collector sets from this year's releases, may think that the main body of this figure is rather familiar, and that is because it has been released already. It is in fact the exact same body that was used for Romana 1, as portrayed by Mary Tam, in her costume apparently as seen within the Pirate Planet. Now, for those of you that have seen that review, you will be aware that I wasn't particularly much of a fan of the body overall and its use, because it doesn't really look too much like what was seen within the episode. But that said, there isn't really a decent sculpt that does look like the costume from that story, and considering we got a Romana 1 figure from using that sculpt, I'm happy as it is. However, this time for Yaz, we have a much more effective use of that sculpt, to the extent that it looks virtually perfect. It almost looks just like the costume that Yaz actually wore throughout the series. So for that reason, I'm happy. I think that overall, the figure looks very good, and again, another effective use of a sculpt, much like the Sarah Jane from Genesis of the Daleks and Revenge of the Cybermen. Zooming in to take a closer look at the costume, we start off in the middle with the inclusion of the shirt/blouse. Once again, this has exactly the same detailing that you'd come to expect from a Character Options action figure, and it has been sculpted in a white plastic. As per usual, we have some buttons running up the middle, as well as a suggestion of a few creases and wrinkles, as well as a few stitching lines running up the side. Towards the very top, the shirt itself is slightly left open, and we do also have the inclusion of the collar sculpted at the top. And of course, this is exactly the same colour to the one that was featured on the Romana 1 figure. Perhaps this shop at exactly the same intergalactic branch of Primark. Tilting the figure around to its side to take a look at the jacket, we have the removal of the rather hideous pink that was used on the Romana 1 action figure, and this time round we have a lighter brown, once again with exactly the same detailing that you would come to expect on a Character Options action figure, including a series of creases and wrinkles, as well as a number of stitching lines. The same does also apply around the back as well, featuring more creases and wrinkles, as well as a stitching line running up the middle. And of course, if we come back round to the front, we also have the inclusion of the lapels that are sculpted just underneath the hair, as well as the rather unusual circular section, no doubt a toggle piece to hold the jacket together, once again left behind from the original Primeval figure release. And then finally for the costume, we move down to the trousers. These have been sculpted in a blue plastic with the inclusion of a belt paint application along the top, also given a silver highlight to of course emphasise the buckle. Towards the bottom we also have the paint application of some light brown shoes, along with a darker paint application below this to represent the sole. Overall, there hasn't been any lighter wash that has been applied to the trousers to emphasise almost that denim look like we would normally see on a few Character Options action figures in the past. And of course, flipping around to the back, we also have the sculpting of some pockets in there as well, and a few further additional creases. Again, it may have been nice to have a wash over this just to make sure the costume had a bit more texture, but to be honest, I don't particularly mind too much. And finally, we return to that brand new head sculpt, and a very similar compliment to that of Ryan Sinclair, however more so. This is perhaps one of the best sculpts that Character Options have produced within the Doctor Who action figure line for a number of years, and not only that, the paint application over the top of it is also incredibly impressive, something of which that applied to the companions of the 4th Doctor set, as well as a number of the new sculpts on Character Options action figures over the past few years, is that a lot of the detailing on the face can look almost cartoony. Some recent examples will be the genesis of the Daleks Sarah Jane with those rather emphasised eyebrows, or even Romana with the rather emphasised facial details. However, with this figure, it's almost a step back in time to the heyday of Character Options action figures, where we were getting whole waves of new series characters to add to our shelves. I think that the paint balance as well as the sculpt is absolutely brilliant. It looks incredibly realistic and all of the details are really sharp and crisp. To start off with, we have the emphasis of the lips, which have been given a lovely pink paint application, and then we also have the very small detailing of the eyes in there as well, with the eye whites, the lighter brown iris, and even the detailing along the top of the eyes to represent some eyeliner. And then of course, to finish all of that off, we also have the detailing of the eyebrows, which haven't been too overdone and again have a little bit of character to represent Mandip's personality. So overall, I'm really happy. I think that this is a really good sculpt and honestly one of the best that I've seen in quite a long time. And the compliments don't end there, as we turn the figure onto the side, we have the inclusion of the hairpiece. Again, Mandip's hair within the show is in fact rather stylish compared to other classic series and new series companions that normally have a rather standard design of hair. It's normally just parted in the middle and down the sides. However, Mandip does of course sport these rather unusual yet brilliant looking space buns on the top of her head, which again has been emphasised with a lot of nice intricate detailing to represent each individual strand. I'm starting to think that even my hair is probably around this length and I could probably pull off this look fairly well. And then of course moving down the side, we also have a few additional strands of hair, and then we have those additional strands also coming along the front of the shoulders and of course covering the front of the jacket. So overall, I'm thoroughly impressed and this figure will look brilliant alongside Ryan and Graham. And with the release of Yaz and Ryan within this collector set, the 13th Doctor's TARDIS team is now complete, and an excellent complement to them along the shelf is of course the Reconnaissance Dalek and the two different variations of Judoon, and of course the 13th Doctor's TARDIS, which I have also reviewed. Of course, also released has been a pink shirt variation of the 13th Doctor, as well as the third and final member of this TARDIS team being Graham O'Brien as portrayed by Bradley Walsh. However, those figures did just come out prior to the COVID-19 lockdown, therefore I've not even seen that figure in person as of yet. However, we'll no doubt track it down sometime soon. You could say that now I have Yaz and Ryan as a part of my collection, the chase is on to find Graham. Ha, get it? I'll see myself out. The third and final figure of this collector set is one that I thought would never be on my review stage in the year 2020. It is the Judoon Trooper, originally released as a part of the first wave of Series 3 action figures many years ago. Now this figure is the standard Judoon Trooper. It doesn't have a removable helmet or anything like that. Of course, also released has been a Judoon Captain, but that is a single carded release that was available a number of months ago and is still available from the vast majority of retailers online. However, this Judoon Trooper has in fact seen a number of different edits to look like the Judoon as seen throughout Doctor Who Series 12, which to be honest, I'm quite shocked that they've actually changed. The first and most obvious difference is with the accessories. Of course, this latest version of the Judoon comes with a brand new accessory gun, unlike the Judoon Captain, I do believe, who came with the standard regular gun from the initial release. We've also seen a few edits that have been made to the belt, as we can see on the original version. We have the little communicator piece there, as well as the stamp piece that they would use throughout the story to mark off the people who've been checked. In this figure here, we don't have the inclusion of the little sockets that would normally contain that accessory. And then also on the opposite side here, we have the inclusion of the gun holster, where you could once upon a time put said gun accessory. However, on this latest version, because the gun is absolutely massive, we do not have the inclusion of the gun holster, and we also don't have the inclusion of the holes where the holster was once connected to the body. Have the inclusion of this padded section with an ever so slight suggestion of abs that have been faintly sculpted into the padded piece. Moving around to the opposite side, just underneath the arms, we also have the additional inclusion of some buckles which are holding the panels together. This leads around to the back of the sculpt, where we have some further panelled sections leading up the spine of the Judoon. The waist of the Judoon also has a series of belted sections along with a number of silver highlights to represent buckles and buttons. However, this time round there is a considerable absence of holes where accessories would have once been stored. As we move further down the figure, we have the continuation of the leather design, including the Judoon skirt. Very much like the original release, this has been split into a number of small sections, including little silver highlights on the bottom to no doubt represent buttons. And then at the very bottom of the legs, we have the inclusion of the giant Judoon boots. Again, much like the rest of the armour-plated figure, this is absolutely littered with small and intricate details, along with several silver highlights to emphasise the buckles and plates that the Judoon boots sport, as well as several different laces running up the very centre. Something to note, and something that I've noticed on other people's Judoon troopers as well, is that the right-hand side leg does seem to be ever so slightly warped to the side. As we can see here, this is the Judoon stud in a normal position, however the leg appears to be ever so slightly turned on an angle. This does slightly affect the balance of the figure, and it is no doubt how the joint has been put into place, which is a little bit of a shame. Of course, the arms of the figure do continue that armour-plated design, featuring lots of different panels, including shoulder and elbow pads, to really bulk out the main body of the Judoon. Then we also have the inclusion of gloves there at the very bottom, along with 3 fingers and a thumb. As we move up to the top of the figure, we have the inclusion of the giant Judoon helmet. This has been emphasised by a thick silver line that runs across the entire shoulders of the Judoon itself. Moving up to the middle of the helmet, we have some further panelled sections, including a few breathing holes, as well as a section that I guess the Judoon will probably peer out of. This has been given a general vent-style grated appearance. To go alongside the Judoon trooper, we have an accessory, which is rare enough as it is, as the vast majority of the B&M collector's sets usually don't feature accessories, let alone an accessory that is a brand new sculpt. But here we have the Judoon gun as seen throughout Fugitive of the Judoon, as they are made a lot larger compared to the original Series 3 counterpart. This has been sculpted in a burgundy style of plastic, and we have a few silver and black highlights in there, including of course a nozzle section at the bottom, as well as a few black highlights to emphasise the different panels, as well as a few silver paint applications around the gun handle, and of course a black piece at the very top as well as at the back. Of course, the gun can be displayed within the Judoon's hand, however I've noticed this can be a little bit awkward to achieve, as you would ideally want one of them holding the handle and the other arm almost holding this silver section here. However, it is a little bit awkward to do, and to be honest, if I had the Judoon captain, I would probably display this gun with that figure as opposed to the regular trooper, simply to make the Judoon captain look a little bit more interesting. And of course, this latest version of the Judoon Trooper will look excellent on the shelf alongside the original Judoon Captain and the Series 3 Judoon Trooper, and together they can track down the fugitive Roof Doctor. Although an action figure of her doesn't exist quite just yet, but who knows, maybe one day they might find her. So in conclusion, for the Doctor Who B&M exclusive 2020 Friends and Foe of the 13th Doctor action figure collector set, it is nice to finally be able to add Ryan and Yaz to the shelf after a number of years of waiting. I do believe that we found out that all 3 companions were going to be released alongside the 13th Doctor, the first ever 13th Doctor action figure, which must be going on around 2 years ago by this point at minimum, surely. It does certainly feel like a long time ago, and I can also recall them releasing at the same time an image of the initial 13th Doctor TARDIS that of course we never got to see, as we had a compromise with a classic TARDIS exterior box being used instead. However, it is nice to finally be able to add the final 2 companions to the shelf to go alongside the 13th Doctor, and of course not only that, another foe to add to the shelf alongside the Reconnaissance Dalek and the Judoon Captain, and hopefully we might get to see more new series collector sets in the future, although I imagine by this point the vast majority of the focus for the B&M exclusive line does seem to be on the classic series action figures, as that seems to be where things are selling the most. Said, I wouldn't mind seeing a few other new series figures released in the future. I imagine that now we have the sculpt for Ryan and Yaz, we no doubt may have a few further variants to come in the future, maybe even a few variants of the 13th Doctor to go alongside them as well, as opposed to the Judoon being featured within this set. So overall, a decent set to add to the collection, especially if you are a fan of the 13th Doctor. And with that does of course conclude my reviews of the Doctor Who B&M exclusive action figure collector sets of summer 2020. I hope you have enjoyed this review, as well as the other reviews as a part of this series. If you've not checked them out already, please do so. I have reviewed all of the sets so far, and do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content each and every week, as well as lots of content of reviews from Big Finish audio dramas, Doctor Who merchandise, merchandise, and much, much more. And on that note, have a nice day, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.